Coming up next, I'll be joined by GB News presenter and author, best-selling author Andrew Pearce, to discuss the paperback release and a new chapter in his best-selling book, Finding Margaret. That's next. And welcome back to GBN Tonight with me, Martin Daubin. I'm joined now by a very familiar and special face of GB News viewers. Of course, it's Mr. Andrew Pearce. And last year, Andrew published a deeply moving and very personal book about the search for his birth mother, Margaret. And now he's back with an update to his best-selling book, Finding Margaret, where he shares new insights and reflections on that astonishing and emotional journey. You can see it on your screens there now. The paperback edition out. Andrew Pearce, Finding Margaret. I'm joined now by the man himself to talk about the new edition. Andrew, a pleasure to share a show with you. Maybe it should be a new double act. But on a serious point, tell us, for those who haven't read the book, about your astonishing journey, and then about the latest updates.
So I was in an orphanage till I was nearly three. Till I was three, I was adopted by a wonderful couple called Betty and George. They already had 3 kids. I was brought up in a Swindon council estate very happily. Always lurking in the back of my mind sometimes was, what do I look like? What does my mum look like? What does my dad look like? My parents always told me I was adopted. I was Patrick James in the orphanage. That's all I knew. I didn't even know my surname. When I was 15, I found my mother upset reading an article. I remember the columnist, Marge Proops. She'd written an article in the Daily Mirror, with a Labour voting family, about why she thought it was right that adopted kids like me could track down their birth parent because the Labour government had changed the law. I read a letter to Marge Proops saying, nah, my mum and dad, my real mum and dad, who needs the blood parent? It was published in the Daily Mirror, much to my embarrassment. But you know, a few years later, my first job, it was as if my birth mother was calling me. My first job in newspapers was the Gloucestershire Echo in Cheltenham. Where was the orphanage? Nazareth House, Cheltenham. Wow. My second job, Birmingham Mail. Now, I assumed that Patrick was born in Bristol, my birth mother lived in Bristol. She didn't, she lived in Birmingham. So I was working on the Birmingham Mail. I could have passed her in the street. I got to about 47, 48. I decided to go for it, track her down, not least because I thought I wanted her to know I was okay. Yeah. I found her, complicated, difficult. And when I found her, I'd assumed, of course, that my birth mother was 16, 17, 18 when she had me. To my amazement, she was a few weeks from her 35th birthday. Wow,
that would be quite an old mum back in those days.
Back in those days. There's an extraordinary story in the book about who is or couldn't be my birth father. So the hardback came out very successfully. And then I got a letter from a lady called Philomena. Think of the film Philomena, starring Judi Dench, about that Irish lady who tried to find her adopted son. Philomena said she'd known me in the home, and she's provided some photographs. They're quite extraordinary. They're of Patrick in the home, barely a year old. And I knew I was looking at myself for the first time. I'd never seen photographs of myself under the age of before the age of 3, when my parents first started considering adopting me.
Andrew, we've got a quick moment. Tell us about the updated chapter, some astonishing extra detail.
Well, so we've got the photographs of the little boy, but also I found a report which revealed that the orphanages that I was in, Cheltenham, Bristol, there was a lot of abuse by the nuns, the Sisters of Nazareth. And if you wet the bed, and I'm afraid I was a bedwetter, one of the punishments I discovered was you were put in a still bath, and then they held your arms from side to side and poured buckets of water over your head. They wrapped urine-stained sheets around your legs. But it's not a gloomy book, Martin. It's an uplifting book and cheerful book. And what it tells you most of all is, Mum and Dad who adopted me, the best I could ever have hoped for.
Great. Finding Margaret. Hold it up. There it is. Get a copy of that. Now,
there it is.